I told him, I said, wow, you look pretty good.
It's 6 o'clock. I'm calling to order this this special meeting of the City Council of the City of Bandera on Thursday, July the 23rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. All council members are present, city administrator is present, the city secretary is present, and Marshall Will is here with us tonight. Item 2 is visitors to be heard. Please email any comments at least 2 hours prior to the meeting for them to be read. Jill, have you received any emails today?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, item 3 is consent agenda. Approval of the minutes for the meeting held on July 1, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Rebecca makes a motion to approve. Jerry seconds. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Item 4, closed session. City Council will convene in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 to seek the advice of legal counsel on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas Open Meetings Act, to wit, legal issues related to the Fair Labor Standards Act and Chapter 21 of the Texas Labor Code. So I'm going to recess this meeting at 6:01.
Okay, so I'll be stopping the video now I'm saying this for the people in public and the sound. So we will come back after this is over.
But council, I would like for Jill and Jay to stay.
Access their appropriate employee portals for time confirmation, for the to schedule training, workplace training on discrimination for all employees and managers, and to provide the city council, if necessary, with a budget amendment for such training.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Jerry seconds. Any discussion? We really can't discuss it, can we? Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, council. Okay, I'm going to call Dan back.
Are we still on agenda item 5 then?
Hey, I'm here.
We just did 5. Okay, item 6 is the regular agenda. Dan, we're gonna move item D to the top of the agenda while you're with us. I know you're on vacation. We don't want to take up any more of your time than we absolutely have to. But item D is discussion of possible action to provide staff direction to formulate options for future consideration regarding the encroachment of the structure located at 810 14th Street into the public right of way. Council, as you know, you received the survey, it's in the right of way. There've been different things that have been thrown around. I sent Dan a text today when we finally got some more information, and that information is there is a title company involved in the purchase by this call. So I don't know if there's a title policy, but I do know that there was a title company involved. Dan, your comments?
Right, so, a few things on this, if I may, and then if there's questions, I can answer questions as well. I became aware of this situation, I would say, about, it might have been a month ago, when code enforcement, when they advised me about the issue and a request that the title company had there, that the city issue a letter basically saying that you would never use that property that falls within your right of way. So that generally I advise no, do never do that. I mean, this is platted right of way. And so my general recommendation is usually never agree to those types of things. And there's multiple reasons for that. But let me just skip ahead in the interest of time and let you know where we're at today on this item. I have talked to Jay about this quite a bit the other day about what the options are. And so part of it comes down to when you look at your right of way in that area, and you have to ask yourself 2 questions. Where are the utilities within that right of way, and how much of this right of way can we reasonably expect to use for future expansion of the roadway? Okay, so those are the 2 important questions. The third question that comes into play is, when was this structure built? And what was the right of way at the time the structure was built? I don't know the answer to that question.
I can give you the answer.
Okay.
The building was built in the 40s, and the city was not incorporated until 20 years later. So it was built prior to those lines being established.
Okay, so that's great information. And so the house is lawful where it's located. The problem comes in that there's nothing in the law now that the town has been platted in the right of way put down that reconciles that difference, right? And so in that instance, there are appropriate remedies. The mayor mentioned the title policy, the title opinion, and the warranty deed that was issued when it was sold. I have not seen any of those documents. I don't even know that the city has any of those documents. But the question to ask is, was that listed as an exception to title? You know, the fact that property is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 feet into the right of way that exists, was that listed as an exception on the policy? If it wasn't, then the title policy, the title insurance, should be paying to remedy the situation in most circumstances. I don't want that to be interpreted as me giving any kind of legal advice to this private citizen. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying that that's a question that normally we would ask of a property if there was title insurance on it. Is this a covered claim? The fact that this was issued and a warranty deed was issued, but this property clearly has an intrusion into the right of way. So that's a separate question as to what can the city do to help this homeowner who is now in the right of way at no fault of her own, right? And so what I've talked to Jay about is there are options whereby you can abandon right of way. There's a process that has to be followed. It has to be surveyed out how much you're abandoning. And we would want that right of way we would want it replatted into that existing parcel, right? We don't want it left as no man's land because it's not enough to independently plat. So it has to be taken into an existing property and platted as part of that property to be part of it and be legal, so that it's reflected on the deed record, so that it's reflected with the central appraisal district, all those things. I don't like doing that for just one parcel. It's better if you look at that whole block and say, here's where our utilities are, here's where the poles are. You know, we really don't ever see this road expanding this additional footage, and having an action come before the council to abandon whether it's 6 foot, 8 foot, or 10 foot of that right of way. Understanding though that the road can then never expand to that extent unless you have a taking of that property a second time or at a future date. But that would also be predicated on those property owners being willing to incur the cost of replatting to take that property that was abandoned into their lot. With this existing parcel, one of the things I noted on the survey I was provided is that it's not going to solve all of this homeowner problems. I think the city should bring that option and authorize the city administrator to bring that option back to you, but don't think it's going to solve all the problems, because when I look at the plat, this person also seems to have an incursion over the side property line into the neighbor's property. They seem to have buildings that go over the line. At a minimum, they are into the setback. They may even cross the property line. I can't tell, but it looks like it's right there. And additionally, that even if the city abandons right of way sufficient so that this person can replat and it's all part of their property and then they can sell, they're not going to be within the setbacks required. And again, that just means that they would have to have variances, so it just means it's another step. And I know to anybody who's hearing this sounds ridiculous. It sounds unfair because this house was built in the 40s before it was ever in the city. The reality is, though, it's a legal non-conforming structure under our rules, but the title company says they don't like that, right? They want it fixed. Well, I think what the city could do, if they were willing to accept a letter that just says, this is a legal non-conforming structure, so we will not require it to be removed, the portion that's in the right of way, maybe that is a solution. Otherwise, it's going to require abandoning right of way, having it replatted and things such as that. But it is a legal non-conforming structure in the sense that it pre-exists, it predates the planning of the city and the reservation of right of way. And, you know, I thought about that after the mayor sent her communication earlier that, you know, maybe that's something that the title company would accept if we just say it's a legal non-conforming structure, we won't require it to be removed. That would certainly be the cheapest option for the homeowner. And actually for the city as well. You know, you don't have to go through all the other processes. Because otherwise it gets very complicated, because we can't just we can't give public right of way to private persons. You know, the Constitution prohibits that. We can't give property away. And so we have to find other ways to accommodate things like this when they come up. So if we can avoid that with just a letter saying we recognize this as a legal non-conforming structure, that might be the easiest and best for everybody. Permanent solution would be having it surveyed out, however many feet we need to survey out, and abandoning the right of way, so long as there's no utilities in it, and we don't believe there are.
Okay, Dan. Jerry, you have a question?
Are you familiar with the homesteading law in Texas, Dan?
I'm not sure what you're referring to when you say that, Jerry.
The right after, I forget how many years it is, I think it's 5 years, 10 years, that the property owner could potentially stake claim to that property if they've been encroaching for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that doesn't, none of that applies to governmental entities. So nobody can adversely possess anything against a governmental entity.
Okay,
Okay.
So that won't help. That won't help. I mean, so yes, if that's what you're referring to, I am familiar with that. But unfortunately, that won't solve this property owner's problem. And the title company clearly knows that, or they wouldn't be asking us to do something to help them.
okay.
I'd like to ask a question for clarification, and it may not necessarily be relevant for this moving forward, but as a learning opportunity for us for future situations that may arise in a similar way. This specific property has been renovated within the last couple of years. So the homeowner had actually come in for permits. So while it was an existing non-conforming structure, at the point that they came in to permit and renovate, is that the point that they would need to come into compliance with setbacks?
Yeah, so,
I think so.
no, actually,
No?
that's a great
No, because
question.
it's
That's a great question. And no,
Okay,
unless they're adding on.
okay,
Right? So
did,
you
and
can't
they did.
expand,
They
you
did.
can't expand a non-conforming structure over a certain percentage unless it's been damaged by a natural occurrence, fire or natural disaster, then you can repair it. But you can't expand. The general rule, now I don't have anything in front of me
yeah,
because of where I'm at. So I don't have anything in front of me to look at your code, but the general rule is you can't expand a non-conforming structure.
And she did
But
not
you
do that.
can maintain it.
But she didn't do that.
Yeah, you can maintain it.
So,
Dan, I have measured the
Yes, sir.
street, I've measured the street and also the 6.5 feet that it would take to get the house off of the easement if we abandoned 6.5 feet of the street. And there would still be over 50 feet left of double lane to the street if we ever decided to do it. So it would not cause any conflict, and it wouldn't be any trees having to be taken out in that situation.
Right,
So
right.
it would not hurt our traffic patterns, what I'm trying to say, in that area. And it does.
Yeah, I agree. I looked at that as well.
Okay. Can we do that? Could we do that, or could we technically lease her that little piece of property for, say, a period of time?
Yeah, so.
Or until the house was
There
removed?
are, right, so so there are other options, Don, and, you know, typically what we recommend are license agreements as opposed to leases. But the problem with that is it kicks the can down the road. It can be done under certain circumstances, a long-term license agreement for the use of city property or city right-of-way.
Right.
I think that there's two things here. I'd rather have a more permanent solution, because if we don't need the right of way, then I generally believe that governmental entities should release right of way that they don't intend to use, because it's just better. If you don't intend to use it, then get it cleaned up, release it to the property owners, because that's the property it came out of in the first place.
Right.
So that's point one. The second part of this, though, is really a larger issue that I advised Jay that as part of your comprehensive plan process, I strongly recommend you make your planning consultants aware of this issue, because this is not an issue that is specific to this property. It is our belief that you have this in multiple places within the city. And the reason why that's important is because we'd like to know where those are, because if we need to release right away in more than one place, it's better to know and address that at once. And the other thing that should be addressed are a reduction of setbacks. If we know that across the city, homes in Bandera, Texas, sit closer to the right of way than what is stated in your code, in your subdivision regulations, then rather than having everybody have to get a darn variance to do anything to the property, why don't we just reduce the setbacks for residential areas? So that's a separate issue, but this brought that to light, and it's something that I've passed along to Jay.
hey, Dan,
Another question for you, Dan, if you don't mind. Since this was back in the 1940s, this house was built and then the city incorporated, wouldn't the right before the incorporation take place?
Well, that's why it's a legal non-conforming structure. That's correct. So because it was there before the right of way, we cannot require that structure to be torn down or that portion of the structure to be torn down. But the problem for them is that they also cannot expand it.
Yes,
And
anytime.
so it's a double-edged sword. And so yes, they do have some rights, but they're denied others. And so, like I said, one solution for them would be, so they could sell it, would be a letter saying it's a non-conforming structure, we won't require it to be torn down. But the better solution long-term is, as you suggested, if we can release a portion of the right-of-way, then this never becomes an issue and they can expand. They still have the setback issue to deal with.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dan, and we'll let him get back on his vacation? Yes, Lynn?
When you say that they'll never be able to add on to the house, does that mean that they would never be able to add on to the back of it
No.
and go further into their,
That's
they
correct.
can't do it at all?
Yes, you can't expand a non-conforming structure.
So you can't expand
In
at all,
in any direction?
in any direction at all?
That's correct, right. That's correct.
It's
That's
not
the general
strange.
rule, Lynn, and I apologize, I don't have your code. I'm unable to pull that up in front of me where I'm at, but that's the general rule. And so if Bandera follows the general rule, that's correct. You can't expand a non-conforming structure.
Even if you're expanding into your own property?
Right, because it's non-conforming. It is into the right of way, so you're expanding an already non-conforming structure, just like you can't expand a non-conforming use.
Okay.
I believe she would accept that, Dan. I believe she would accept
I'm
that.
sorry?
I believe the lady would
Yeah,
accept
okay.
that, what you just said.
Okay. And again, Lynn and Jerry, I mean, I'm not opining on the fairness of that. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
that's the general rule. I do think there are things we can do, however, to fix that going forward, not just for this property, but for other properties in Bandera. You have a very unique situation there. You have a great community, but you also have you have some subdivision regulations and zoning principles in place that really didn't account for how that town developed. Your comprehensive plan is an opportunity to look at those things and fix those for a lot of your citizens. And I know that's not the item, but that's just something I'd like to point out.
Well, it is relevant if that may, just so you know, Dan, too, Jay and Jill and I did reach out to our master planners today, and so that, just as you said, this isn't an isolated situation, and we need to come up with a plan to address this type of problem throughout the community.
Any other comments before I let Dan go back to his undisclosed location? All right, Dan, we thank you. We're gonna move forward and we'll talk to you next week. Keep plenty of sunscreen going
All
on.
right. All
Bye.
right, y'all take care.
Probably sitting on the beach.
All right then, council. What do you wanna do? You wanna make a direction to code enforcement and then city administrator to explore what I think are two options or all options or whatever options you want. The option of the first off, I think we need to explore
The legal non-conform. I just wonder if this at this point requires a motion, because I don't want to limit the possibilities of the solutions that could be reached between the property owner, the title company, the city, and what you guys could draft. So
if y'all don't, the agenda item is to direct the staff. So if y'all don't choose to direct the staff at this time, then that's cool. So let them go ahead and negotiate and keep back and forth now that we've all been informed on the situation.
and in the event that you need council's approval, then you come back with a solution, I would imagine.
Council,
That
all
sounds
good with that?
And not really. We need to expedite this because this is costing a sale on our property. And we either say no or we say yes or.
Oh, I'm not saying no. I'm saying go find the answer, and if you
Yeah.
need
Find an answer,
approval,
go
bring
fix
it
it.
back to us. I want to fix
The
it.
title
Do you
company
understand,
needs to be
Jay, what
involved
they're
too.
trying to tell you?
Yes,
I
sir.
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if they
I
would've
think time is of the essence on this.
If I might,
I
I
would
mean,
agree.
we can have direction, but it's gonna be on their side also, where the title company or whoever has to approve what we recommend if we do make recommendations. We say we can do the legal non-conforming letter for you. They say no, then we need to come back with plan B.
And that's
So the
fine.
direction would be to work with the title company and come back with us
Well,
with
work
a
with the buyer.
resolution.
I mean, the seller, not with
The buyer and
Right.
Not the buyer, the seller.
the
Yes, I do know
property owner.
what we're talking about.
Okay. Let's just try to get it done.
If I may, I just wanted to explain, Don, my reason for not taking a specific action is I don't want to limit the solution to the one council decision if that in fact does not work for the title company or the lender or the seller. There's so many parties involved. I want the solution found immediately. And then in the event we need to approve it, bring it back to council at that point when we know that that is the right action. Does that make sense?
If you say so. I would just like to see something.
We'll make a
done.
motion.
No,
by
that's
all
fine.
means,
I'll go with something just to get something moving because it is costing someone some money. So we
Nobody's
know we
disagreeing
can't
with
change
that.
it. So
Time out, one at a time.
I'll rest my case. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, Don, that if we take action by saying that we want to direct and take a motion and approve to say maybe making it a legal non-conforming structure, then that limits them to that.
That's what I just
And
said.
it limits the property
I'm
owner
just
too.
trying to,
Yeah.
that
And
limits.
better
it.
solutions that
Well,
they may.
okay.
And we would much rather,
Hey, one at a time.
Thank you.
So Don has already rested his case. I don't think we need to explain it any further. I think we all understand the situations here.
I think so.
So we ready to move on?
Move on.
Okay, let's move back up to item A. Presentation by City Engineer Derek Nizer of LNV on the street assessment. Derek out there somewhere?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope y'all can hear me.
Yes, we can
We're not
hear
here
you.
yet, but yes, we're good.
Yeah. Well, all right. Yeah, LNV. I'm Derek Nyes with LNV, and we were engaged to do a street study and basically evaluate the condition of all the streets in town within the city limits and assess them. We rated them. Excuse me. We rated them on pavement distress issues such as rutting and cracking and quarter point failure, edge failure, base failure, potholes, ride quality, all those different distress figures. We also, while we're in the field, visually inspecting every street, we also recorded data to help us estimate and put together budget estimates for these streets. So we estimated, measured the width, looked at additional area or widths. If there were elements like curb or striping or manholes, water valves, base repair, edge repair, level up areas or pavement markings and striping. We captured all of those, excuse me. And so then after we gathered all the field data, we came back and we prioritized the streets based on their condition and basically put them in order from worst to best or best to worst, however you want to look at it. We then recommended treatment types, and we looked at, besides doing basic repairs like full depth base repair or quarter point failure or fixing the raveling edges, we also in general looked at 3 different maintenance or treatment options. One being a seal coat or a one-course surface treatment as you see it referred to. That's the standard, most economical way where you put oil and aggregate down on the street to extend the life. Basically, you're sealing off all the cracks and trying to extend the life. I always refer to that or compare it to something like painting your house. It extends the life, gets a few more years out of the existing structure. The next one was a ACP, asphaltic concrete pavement or overlay. That's a little bit more expensive than a seal coat. It involves putting 1.5 inches of hot mix down. It basically will give you a smoother ride, reprofile the street, give you a better cross slope, and also add a additional structural capacity to the existing pavement. And then the third thing we looked at was rehab for those streets that were in the worst condition, starting to come apart, raveling to a point where if you went in there and did all the base repair that you needed to fix the road up and resurface it, it would probably cost more to do that than it would be to do a rehab. What the rehab is in place. We're sort of like recycling the material. We're taking the existing base and asphalt surface, mixing it up, adding cement to it, relaying it, regrading it, recompacting it, and then adding a seal coat and an overlay on top of that. So you wind up with a finished product that's better than what the original new street was because you're recompacting the existing material and adding about 1.5 inches, which is equivalent to about 3 inches of base. So that's kind of, in general, what we did to that. Now, we also estimated and provided an estimate for each street segment, and those are full budget estimates that include construction, contingencies, any miscellaneous items that might be out there, such as pavement markings is the most notable one. There's not a lot, but there is some. And also engineering and contingency. Then we also took the whole, all the street segments, and we put them into a 7-year plan. And as we put them in that 7-year plan, we added inflation into the years 2 through 7. Because, you know, naturally our estimate dollars were put together in today's dollars. So we wanted to make sure that as we got in the out years, we'd have enough funds. That roughly came up to about $400,000 per year. That gave us a price tag of about $2.8 million for everything. So when you divide that by 7, it's about 400,000. I'm going to share the screen now. Jill, am I able to do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's go in our report. You'll see in the end here, we kind of have a summary, and it breaks it out just from a cost data from year 1, you know, and each year we show what percentages one course that OCST is one course surface treatment or the seal coat. And then ACP is the overlay or hot mix overlay, asphaltic concrete pavement. And then the rehab. And as you can see, when we broke these up, naturally the ones that we had identified for rehab were the worst street segments, of course, but they're also the most expensive. So in year 1, we kind of wanted to tackle some of the more, you know, highly trafficked rehab sections denoted, and we didn't do any overlays or one course surface treatments. Ideally, we probably wanted to do all of the rehabs first. But when I was analyzing the street segments, I thought there were quite a few segments that weren't quite to the point where we needed to rehab them, but they were right on the edge, deterioration. And one example would be sort of like 13th Street. It's got a lot of distress and a lot of, you know, cracks starting. And if we let that thing go for, you know, too many years, we're going to be rehabbing that whole thing. And that's a pretty large segment. So we thought in year 2, we would focus on those worst roads we had identified for seal coat and overlay. Come back in year 3, pick up some of the rehabs and do a little bit more.
Can I interrupt you just a second?
What's that?
Can I interrupt you?
Yes, ma'am.
Council, if you look at Exhibit E, this is your streets organized by year, and you'll see the names of the streets, and instead of trying to pick them out on our maps, here it is in the summary, Exhibit E. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'll get to those maps next. I just kind of wanted to show the methodology of how we split them up. When we split them up into years, we basically use the score, budget, proximity, traffic, you know, to kind of put them into logical packages that are somewhere around the $400,000 mark. as you notice, some of these are a little bit over in the beginning and our last year is a little bit light. We can kind of play with that. This is a plan. It kind of gives us a structure to work with, so we can modify some of those as we need to based on budgets in any given year if the city elects to fund some of these. This map right here is, there's two maps at the end of the report that y'all should have. This one kind of denotes what we identified for seal coats, which is all the green. And in the overlay areas, you can see the overlay areas, we kind of focused on, retail areas or higher traffic, or maybe some truck traffic area, bus traffic, schools.
Eric, you need to toggle over, it's not on the screen. You're still on the estimates.
All right.
No
My bad.
record.
I forgot I had to unshare and reshare. Can y'all see it now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks, Jill. So the green areas are the ones that are the seal coat or one course surface treatment. The yellow are the ACP overlays. We kind of, like I said, we kind of focused in on more higher traffic or truck traffic or retail or school or bus traffic areas. And then the red are the ones we recommended for rehab, the segments that we would want to rehab the existing pavement. So if you look at the next map, it's a map that kind of breaks it out by year. So you have year 1, which is the red, year 2 is the blue, year 3 is the green, 4 is the purple, and so on. And I'm going to go back to the list before I get to questions. We also, in the report, have put together a couple of lists. I'm just going to kind of go through the list. The color coding to the right, if you notice the year, that's the year we have it denoted in, 1 through 7. And the color matches that, which also corresponds to the map. The first list is just a alphabetized list so that if you want to find a street easy, you can kind of go to the alphabetized list and see what street segment that is from and to, and our pavement score, length, width, area, the treatment, type, whether it's a surface treatment, an overlay, or a rehab, and then what year it's slated in. And in the next list, Exhibit B would be just the one course surface treatments or seal coat streets. And these are set up by score, prioritized by score. And then you can also see the year. And you'll kind of see, some of you may ask, why did like that one street, Pecan Street, that's in year 3 that scores worse than a street that's in year 4. When we were kind of doing these, trying to get close to that 400,000 a year, some of these segments are more expensive than others. So sometimes we might have bumped one or two one way just to make the dollars kind of get a little bit closer to what we're trying to do for the 7-year plan. But there's not too many of those. Most of them are pretty well in line with lowest score to highest score. The next set is just the overlay streets. Same thing there. Those streets that we identified for overlay and their rank. And then the rehab streets, same thing, from lowest score to highest score. And then Exhibit E is our sorted by our plan year. So 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. I would say that whenever we do these kind of studies and street maintenance plans and put these programs together, if you look at what we have, for example, in the bottom of year 6 and 7, a lot of those are pretty good street segments and in good shape. So a lot of times when you get to about year 4 or 5, you want to kind of maybe look at and there's something we need to shift around or reprioritize or do a little different. We have some segments maybe that need a little bit more work than some of these that are in 6 and 7 once we get there. So the point there is things will change or modify over time. It's just the nature of anything out there. The more time and weather and stuff, things can change. Some of the streets that maybe or a little bit poor could get in worse shape faster than something that's in pretty good shape. So anyway, that's kind of the presentation on what we did and what we recommended. And I'd be glad to take any questions that anybody may have.
Jerry.
Of course, this is Jerry Russ. Some of these streets are like a 7-year project in themselves, the way it appears. For example, 11th Street. They've got some of the more immediate needs on part of the street. And then it'll be 6-7 years later before the rest of the street's finished. If we decided as council that we wanted to complete a whole street, do we have that option? I know it kind of throws off the plan.
Yeah.
But it makes, to me, it makes more sense that we do a whole street at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a plan. What we, like I said, what we did is we went out and we looked at all of these segments based on how similar they were. So
Right.
we broke them up, we broke them up into segments. Take 11th Street. You go from behind the supermarket over there at Sycamore Street all the way down through to Pecan Street.
Right.
That thing has pretty severe stress, pavement stress. We're recommending to rehab it. It's got a lot of traffic from the school and those businesses, and it's banged up pretty good. And in that next segment right there that we have shown in year 2, it's, a little bit better, but you could argue that, why don't we do that with year 1? That's a perfectly good argument. The other section, that little short 1 block that's down the hill there, pretty good shape. So could you do it all together? Yes, you could. What we were trying to do is address the worst ones first.
Sure.
And then when you do that with a fixed limited budget, it gets, you start doing them just in segments and blocks and do this part of town and that part of town. You could have some pretty bad street segments that don't get addressed for, 6 or 7 years. And in the other parts of town. So it's kind of, we can do it however we, whatever council thinks is the best way. I'm just, from what we put together was based on worst to best.
Okay.
And then also I'll add to that, because like I said, there's some streets, you look at the year 7 streets, just look at the brown here. You got, I'm hoping y'all can see what I'm sharing. You've got Buck Creek Drive over here in Whitetail Lane, Sycamore Street, 13th that comes off of Cottonwood. There's some streets, 2nd and what is that, Hackberry. Some streets that are in pretty good shape that looks like they might have got, the treatment the last time y'all did do some work. Some of those streets, even though we show them in a 7-year plan, we might get through, part of the plan, year 5, reassess, and those might even be, we might even be able to push those back later and take care of some other needs that, maybe a seal coat on a street, that received a lot more traffic, or something changed out there that we need to address before we address some of those. So it's just prioritized.
Suzanne.
Yes.
I hope I'm making
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Okay. I have a question. Say, this is Lynn Palmer.
Hey, Liz.
Take 11th Street. How are you doing? Thank you for all this work. I appreciate it. This is something that's really been needed for the city of Bandera. But take 11th Street, because that is a high traffic zone with our school. How long of a project is that going to be, do you think? The red portion of it. What would be your estimated time frame on doing that red part?
Right. We would recommend doing, anytime you do asphalt work, you want to do it during the summer months.
Okay.
And we would recommend trying to do these construction projects sometime, let's say between May and August. In the work that we have, if we're talking $400,000 bites, that's something that a contractor could do in a summer. So it's not a long duration, months and months and months. It's something that would probably take 3 to 4 months at most.
Thank you.
And that's for the rehab. If you start doing the surfacing like year 2, which is really just seal coat and overlay, that's even shorter, probably half as long a time for the same amount of money.
Thank you, Derek.
So Derek, if council agrees to this street plan and it being a living document, it can be changed as circumstances change. How long to go out for bids and actually get work in and once we create a capital improvement project and fund it?
Yes. So to answer your question, this is a plan, so it's flexible. Just like the councilman said, if there's, we want to reorder or move one up from 2 to 1 or whatever, that's things that we can definitely do. If the council was going to take on this plan and try to fund the first year, which was 400, I don't know what, I forgot what the total was, but 400 and something thousand dollars. We would want to start that probably in about January. That would give us enough time to do the field data gathering and surveying so we could put together plans and specs and then go to bid so that we'd be ready to get contracts and awarded and get contracts to start, during that warmer summer period, late April, May timeframe. So also, I guess to further expand on your question, if we want to, this is a plan and we have it set out roughly 400,000 a year, but let's say we get into 1 year and council says, oh, we want to do 600, or the other way, we can only do 300. Well, we have the prioritized ranking. All we got to do is come in here and, okay, we'll start adding from the top and we'll start adding up the dollars till we get to 300 because they're in order of priority, and boom, that's what we're doing. So it's a plan that we can use no matter what gets thrown at us down the road, whether we have a little bit more, a little bit less, or we try to follow it. It's something, we have all the data there to be able to manipulate it however we want to.
We'll get into budget when we'll discuss it more, but I want to tell council that if you decide to redo a CIP, we've already got the funds as our auditor recommended we do. But if you're concerned about funding this thing before you vote on it, we have failed to use funds that have been available to us through prior budgets for years. So this isn't going to be the giant bite that you think it might be. So just keep that in mind as we move on through the program, through the project. Questions for Derek? All right.
Would you entertain a motion?
Do we need to make a motion
Well, if we're through with
to
Derek,
accept this?
if we're through with Derek, I was gonna let Derek go and then we can move on. Okay, Derek, I guess we're done. Good night. Thank you.
I'll be here available if y'all need any questions. So just.
We're about to motion on to it, so let's see what happens. Jerry?
I would like to make a motion. I move to accept the street assessment plan by L&V.
Second that.
Rebecca, second discussion. They want to make it clear, council, that you want to use this as the basis for a CIP that we have not created yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor. Thank you, council. I'm so glad to get this moving.
Thank you.
Yes, we all are.
All right,
Sure.
item B. Discussion of possible action on the waste service agreement with the public services. You all have it in your packet. Jay and I have been doing some more discussion today. If y'all are not ready to go on to the discussion, I know Terry and Tom Armstrong and Blake are on standby, ready to talk to us if you're ready to want to discuss it. Do you want to move forward?
Move forward with the discussion.
Discussion, yeah.
I've read it, so I'm ready for discussion.
Okay. Well, there's a little bit, go ahead. I'm just gonna give you my position first, and y'all all know that I've worked with the public for 5 years here since the last 5 years. They're offering to basically reimburse the city 5% of what they collect from the city, which would be about $15,000 a year, as a form of a franchise fee, so that will help us repair our streets. That's possibly one use for it. The offer of the small trash carts, we're still debating that one with them right now. They are offering a 10% discount to any resident that is either disabled or elderly. I want to throw out here right now, our residential garbage rates are way, way out of line. I'm gonna suggest if we stay with these folks, because if we have to go to RFP, they're gonna change their offer. We are in a position, if they give our elderly and disabled, and they will only go to elderly and disabled right now, that's the way they're sitting. But we as a city, instead of raising garbage rates this year, we can easily afford to cut garbage rates by 10%. Easily afford. We are way, way upside down on our residential, not on our commercial, but on our residential.
Wow.
By about 33%. So we can easily afford to give our citizens, all of our residential customers, a 10% cut. But I don't know what anybody else is going to come in with as an offer. Okay, the recycling. They're gonna set up that recycling station, I think at the wastewater plant. They're gonna provide cameras. They're going to watch it. We'll see how it works out. This is a trial thing. I don't think anyone in the world can afford to even consider curbside. That's just crazy, you know?
Wow.
What else do we come up with? Oh, the term of the agreement. 5 years, you know, we'll get the franchise fee.
Terry's on.
What?
He's on if anybody had questions for him,
Okay.
Terry.
Well, let me finish what I just want to make my presentation and let the trash guys do. Not only would Republic give us the franchise fee on a 5-year agreement, if we go for a 7-year agreement, they would give us the franchise fee and waive the first annual price increase. Think about this, if they waive the first year, we are truly in a position right now to reduce our rates this year. They won't have a price increase this year, and not have another price increase or even decrease our prices again, depending on how this thing goes. Yes, Lee?
I thought just last year, we were talking about how we were losing money could you help me with that, Rebecca?
Yeah.
That we were losing
Yeah,
money because we weren't charging enough, and
well, I
that's
think
why we
it could be
increased?
that we weren't charging everyone who the service was being provided to.
That's correct.
So they did an audit, we were losing money before
Right.
the audit, and
Right.
then the utility department came in and corrected those utility bills for those people.
Laura has done an amazing job. She's the one that caught this and went,
And
holy
am I,
guacamole. Yeah,
did
is
I
that-
describe it
Go ahead,
accurately?
I'll chime in here in a minute. Y'all go ahead.
Okay, because that's what I remember, so
Yeah.
I hate to think that we were, charging our citizens too much now when we said that we were losing money, so.
But that's the whole problem. Laura came in, she caught it. She's so fantastic in that position.
I agree.
And she was looking at the budget numbers, and then she's looking at her numbers over there.
Mhm.
And when you get to it later, I mean, right now, we are 3/4 of the way through our budget, and our residential garbage pickup is sitting at 133%. So it's gonna be at 36%. So I'm just throwing that out to you. Maybe we can work out those details after you don't get to ask all your questions. But the other thing that I want to say to you is that Republic does not charge us for the city park dumpsters. They don't charge us for the other dumpsters around town that are on city property. They don't charge us for down at the wastewater plant or the ones here in town. And twice a year they do the pickup. Now, in addition to that, when we have special events, if the event sponsor will go through the city, they won't charge the city charge the customer for the dumpsters either on that. So, you know, these guys have done a lot for the city. They contribute to the civic side of it, and then they're always there for us when we need them. They helped a great deal after the flood, when we had all that mess we had to clean up. So I advocate that you think about it carefully before we go out for RFPs, because the terms of this contract will change, or this proposal will change if we go for RFPs.
You know, Republic has taken care of Bandera for a lot of years. They've been a great company. They've done everything they've said. Takes a motion. I'd like to make a motion to go accept this. If not, we'll go ahead.
Okay, could I have a clarification? Do you want to extend the contract for 5 years or 7?
Yes, 5 years.
For 5 years?
Well, wait, maybe the majority of the cast, Jay, 7 be better?
Well, yeah, but before we jump on that, we need to, the existing contract right now will need to be amended moving forward. So the new one will be, and the amendment will say 7 years plus these items on this right
So
here.
we're renegotiating the
Yes.
extension of the 5-year
Yes,
contract.
in our contract now, we have the opportunity to extend it one time.
Okay,
And it's worded as 5, but we can extend it to 7 with an amendment and these other amendments in here.
and then we can look up the other details of what.
Terry, or is Terry on?
Yes.
Don, I'm listening to you right now.
Okay, thank you there. Go ahead. You heard what Jay said just now, did you not?
I did. Jay's accurate.
Okay.
Hello, Rebecca.
Hi, Terry.
Um,
I'm not sure what's happening.
I'm not sure either.
Well, you have your hand up, so you need to call on her.
Well, wait a minute, we have a motion and a second. I'm just trying to clarify the motion first before we move on.
Jay corrected
I'd like
from the
You wanna
5 years
restate
to
the
the 7
motion?
years.
I'd like
I
to-
made the motion, yeah.
Yeah, you want to
I was
restate
just
the
going to
motion?
request you a minute.
That we go ahead and enter into the contract for 7 years with Republic Services,
Extension.
a renewal extension, right?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, now we're ready for discussion. Thank you. Rebecca?
Well, I sat down with Terry and Jay a few weeks back, and we had an extensive discussion about some of these specific items. So I really appreciate all the work Terry's done to address some of these things. The franchise fee is a new perk that they added in there, which was really good. One thing that we had discussed in the conversation was this limiting the small tote option to disabled and elderly folks only. As far as I'm concerned, or remember hearing from our city attorney in the past, we cannot discriminate. If we offer a service, we have to offer it to everyone, period.
Right.
So that's, in my mind, that's still a conflict that has not been resolved yet. And this did come up on on our agenda in June. We had talked about this a little bit on this topic with garbage service, in terms of requiring people to, I guess that's a different agenda item
Yes,
though.
ma'am.
Okay, I apologize. So there's that. There's the tote sizes that I felt like we really had the consensus that we wanted more options for all of our consumers. So that doesn't satisfy that to me. I'm really happy about the recycling program, and we discussed this at length. While the curbside is costly, and with the market the way it is right now, this seemed to be a really great way to explore a program locally, with the run. What are the big things called?
Roll off.
The pull-offs, the roll-offs, with it compartmentalized for different products. And then I have no problem either with a term of 5 or 7 years. what I do take issue with, and while Republic is wonderful and we love them, we have no idea what any other company can offer us or compare it to because we don't have any other proposals. We don't know if this is the best deal for our customers, really. We can like them all we want. They have a great reputation and they very well may be the best option for the city of Bandera. But we have a fiduciary responsibility to our constituents and to the customers who pay for this service to get them the best offer for all of their services, period. And it rubs me a little bit the wrong way to think that Republic's gonna say, well, you're only gonna get this if you don't go out for RFPs. If you don't seek other proposals, that's the only way you're gonna get this great deal. And maybe that's just the way they negotiate to make the sale. But that really limits our ability to assure that we're providing the best service at the best cost for our constituents and our customers.
Thank you. Any other comment, Councilman? Lynn?
I just had a question for Jay. I think we had a couple of complaints this year on the pickup where Republic did not pick up the brush piles the way that they thought they should pick them up.
Well, if I can, and I don't remember exactly which one. We had several calls, people. A lot of times, you're just limited to, I believe it's 3 cubic yards on the bulky trash pickup.
Okay.
I know there was a couple of incidents where there was more than that.
All right.
Then there was some where they put it out after they'd already been by once. And basically they're not backtracking. They've got a route, they're gonna follow that route for that week or 3 days, whatever it was, and pick those up. I do remember them, and I'm not saying that they didn't miss one. I just don't remember it, but I do remember those circumstances on that.
And what happened after that? Did the brush just remain there, or?
It was taken care of.
Okay.
And if I could, one other thing is the Republic goes out of their way, which I'm not saying that other companies wouldn't either, but in county rebuttal to Rebecca's is how many more companies around this area are they? I don't know myself. I know one other company, but there may be 10 and there may be no more. The other thing is Bandera is a very, very small city. Republic treats us like we're San Antonio, like a big city. Which
They always have.
to me is a kind of a feather in the cap.
But not knowing anything about the other companies, as Rebecca was referring to, gosh, they may really offer us something. I guess.
And I'm not, well, you can say I'm selling Republic, really and truly, I'm not. Here's some facts that I do know. Republic owns the landfill. So ABC company comes over here and starts doing our trash service. That cost is gonna generate back to us for them going to Republic's landfill, because they don't have their own
All
landfill.
speculation though too,
What's that?
Well, okay, but he's making a point, and the point was brought up in discussion with Terry as well.
Right, I mean, like I say, I'm not putting down any other company, and I'm not saying that Republic is the only trash company out there, but I'm just kind of throwing out a little bit of facts that I know, and there's probably 2 sides to every story. But I do know you've got to pass cost on if I go to your RV park, you're charging me to park at your RV park. If you own your RV, you're not charging yourself to park.
Right.
I just don't understand the fear behind getting the bids and making the informed decision. I don't understand. And like I said, Republic might be the one that after it's all said and done. They may very well be. What is wrong with making an informed decision and not speculating?
There's nothing except, I mean, this was just presented to council. If you like it, great. If you don't, great. If you
But a lot of energy has been devoted to getting this in front of council and not going out for RFPs, which we discussed at the
That
last
should be
meeting.
standard. right?
Hang on. Rosie?
What if you get another company to bid, and they bid you all this worldly stuff, and then they don't do it?
Well, it's a contract. Then
That doesn't mean
I'm sorry.
anything.
Lynn?
Would Republic be willing to offer the smaller totes to all of our citizens?
Well, let's go back to number one on a disabled part that y'all brought up. We can get around that part of it one way or the other. We'll figure out how to get through that where it's something we decide on giving the disabled the 10%. As far as the smaller toters go, it's not the size of the toters that make the cost difference. The cost difference is the city, for instance, staff and our staff, there's so much cost issue in the changing, the chances of mistakes, the chances of errors, all that kind of stuff come up with the smaller toters, and they actually cost us more. Jerry, a minute ago, I heard you raise your hand. I take special interest in your RV park. I take every call you get to put a sticker on a can. I take those calls personally. I do take care of the city. Whenever somebody calls me, I react and take care of them. I have the RV park on y'all have my speed dial on my phone.
Oh, I bet.
I take good care of y'all.
Hang on, Lynn's got a question. Go ahead, Lynn.
Please.
So are you saying that you will not be able to offer smaller toters to our citizens? Is that what you're saying?
Not at a discounted price.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Not at a discounted price. It costs
That would be the purpose, would be for a discounted price for people that don't have a large household and would maybe don't need a large toter and don't need to pay that much.
I'm discounting 8% now in this proposal.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for answering my question.
Jerry, you have your hand up. Don?
We have a motion and a second. Don't we have one motion and second?
Have a what?
Question.
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
He wants the discussion to end.
You want to call the vote? Okay, in case like that, all in favor of extending the contract with Republic? Don Clark, Rosie Smith, and Lynn Palmer in favor. All opposed? Jerry and Rebecca are opposed. All right then, Jay, would you please work on the drafts of these extensions and be sure they get to our attorney before it comes back to council for approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, item C, discussion and possible action on approving ordinance 378, amending chapter 6, health and sanitation of the City of Bandera Code of Ordinances is hereby amended, by amending Article 6.04, solid waste, regulating the disposal of residential and commercial solid waste within the city, providing a fine not to exceed $2,000 per violation, providing for enactment, repealer and severability clause, providing for effective date, finding proper notice, and
I would like to make a motion to table this ordinance,
you.
please.
I agree.
If we may address it at the next meeting.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Don seconds, discussion?
I would appreciate a little bit more time to read through this. I did not realize that we were gonna be extending a solid waste contract. I know that there was a TML notice today about some revision of state law regarding solid waste. And given that we're not willing to shop for the best deal for our customers, I certainly don't want to make anyone obligated to purchase this service through the city.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? All in favor?
Do we need a,
Hmm?
do we need to call
So
it
don't I
to
have a-
table? Or not? Or is it just moved to the next meeting?
Well, didn't we just have Don second your motion to table?
Okay, yeah, I was just
Okay.
clarifying the process.
All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, item E, Discussion and possible action on creating a capital improvement project for streets using funds from the general fund balance. Jerry,
I'd like to make a motion. I move to allocate $500,000 from the general fund for the CIP, for the capital improvement project.
Don seconds. Discussion?
Is this a budget adjustment?
No, this will actually be, what it will be is next year, as we budget for the CIP, this money will be allocated to the CIP. It does not, CIPs are not in the budget, if that makes any sense.
Okay, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. All right, here comes the streets. Okay, item F, treasurer's report, quarterly update on the financial reports. I need to apologize to council. We had a little glitch with encode, so it took until actually yesterday to get this all translated into an Excel spreadsheet for you. So, but the numbers are correct. We had to check it and make sure that the numbers are all correct. So I know you haven't had much time to look at it, but you want to point out the highlights?
Sure. Okay, so in the beginning of the year, we had the council agreed to put $202,263 in the general fund from prior year construction. And so on November the 7th, council approved to amend those transfers. One was $86,210 to be moved into the general fund, the general council contingency fund, and $100,000 to be moved into the utility council contingency fund. Then we moved that 100 into the wastewater improvement fund. And then council also approved to for $22,296 to be moved from the general council contingency to the street right-of-way fund. So on the 16th of January, council also approved to give the employees some raises, and so that was $10,550 for the general fund and $18,470 for the utility out of the utility council contingency. So there's also somebody did a street light pole which cost which brought in $9,761.32 that we put in the street repair and maintenance fund to be used for that purpose. But if you look on the first page, you'll notice that our revenue is a lot higher than our expenditures for the percentage. So we're actually doing very good on our revenue, and we're still under our 75% for the expense. So that's really good. And going through on everybody's budgets and everything, everybody is really maintaining underneath that 75%, except for the streets, or I'm sorry, the wastewater, which was also, part of that was used for the Mulberry
Well.
Yes, the Mulberry well, but so that was a little bit higher, but overall for the utility, the revenue is a lot better and it's up more than the expense. So overall, we are doing very good for our 75%. I mean, we are doing very good, and I like these numbers. I really do.
One of the things I wanted to point out to council is on page 2, which is our sales tax revenue. We've all been kind of a little worried about this. As of, what was it, July the 10th, we got another $90,000 that we split, $30,000 to EDC and another $60,000 to us. So we're right now, and that was our May revenue.
Mhm.
Our June revenue won't be here until next month. So, we haven't even gotten all the revenue for the first quarter. Well, June, July, yeah. No, okay, so anyway, but we're 478,000 out of 550,000 that we had budgeted for, and I'm so proud that we can say that our businesses have pulled together, our citizens, I mean, it's just awesome.
The other thing that I wanted to point out, Suzanne, real fast, is that our park revenue is really good for us not being open for, that first whole month. And so our revenue is good on that one too. We're only lacking like 35,000 to meet our projected $145,000 goal for our budget. So overall, we're doing really well.
And on revenue, for a point of reference, at this point, we should be at 66%. Would be right on target, but we're already at 75% in our revenue, so we're way above target. We've still got quite a bit time to go. We really don't have time to go through this thing page by page for council. I know that Amber would be available anytime to discuss anything with you, unless you have something right now that you wanted, that you picked up on that you want to discuss with her.
Just give me a call.
Jay, did you want to?
Not just
Add to
that the sales tax is up almost 19% compared to last year. We really thought, or I thought it was gonna probably be down 20%. So I'm very happy, but I
A lot of
was,
people shopping local.
well, and it just shows that even though a lot of the businesses were closed, people were still shopping here, and there was a lot of business going on through here. So tickled to death with the numbers, and I hope they stay up like that. I could not find a record where they've ever been that high before.
Well, it would have really been something to see without the COVID then. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We're bound to have been affected. We were on to probably a record year until this came along, but even so, to be that far ahead. Surprising and impressive.
Now, Brett, move on and get this thing. Anything else, Amber, that you wanted to add?
No, that if you guys have any questions or want to go over anything, then just give me a call. I know that we're part-time here in the office, but I'm available on my cell phone after, when I'm not here or whatever. So just call me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item G, approval of ordinance 377, extending the declaration and emergency order regulating gatherings in excess of 10 persons. This has been, unfortunately, canceled, at least the National Daily American Cowboy is. However, also on this, in this ordinance is section, oh, that's the wrong ordinance, no wonder I can't find it. Okay, 377. Dan has included, so we will exclude the stuff about the National Daily Cowboy, but he has included a portion in the local provisions for face masks.
Did we get a copy of that? Did we get a copy of it?
Yes.
It's in the
377.
Are you referring to exhibit A? So
Item 4. Face covering requirements applicable in conformance with the order, okay?
that's exhibit A, item 4. So did you mean to strike item 2 under exhibit A?
Oh, yes, National Daily Cowboy, yes. There's 2. It's on the back of the page, I couldn't find it.
So one is relevant, correct, with city
Yes, 1
parks.
is relevant,
3 is relevant with
3 is
outdoor
relevant,
gatherings.
and then number 4.
Okay.
Number 4A, and this is where I have a problem.
4A, okay.
We're requiring all the commercial entities in the city to provide a plan and to see it implemented and to see it executed. I don't mind as a business owner supplying a plan, but I'm not gonna turn in to law enforcement and insist that people put on a mask. I'm not gonna put up with all of that. I mean, I don't mind, I just don't wanna be held to having to enforce this on people who I don't know if you have a medical condition or, I don't mind the rest of it, I don't mind, but developing a plan or implementing a plan, I just don't wanna have to be the one to call the cops and say, hey, there's this lady in here, she won't put on a mask. Better than that.
Okay, let's, may
Yes,
may
ma'am.
I get this party started? This, so this reminds me of the, local ordinance that was put in place in San Antonio whereby, because we all are aware that, Will shared with us the email, then we also the TML updates that explain these problems with the governor's executive order in terms of law enforcement agencies having, the executive order having the teeth to give law enforcement the authorization to detain, cite, whatever, enforce this governor's executive order. So what they had done in San Antonio quite a while back, if I'm not mistaken, was kind of put it on the businesses to enforce the mask requirement. And so that is what I'm assuming we're looking at here, which is a solution. This is a suggestion, essentially, from our city attorney to demonstrate how other communities are handling this issue with the non-enforcement problem. Now, can we clarify our count before we get, because this may even be a moot point.
It is, right?
Shay has a good explanation, go ahead.
We have 4 right now.
Why do other sources say we have more than that? And what,
I don't know.
well,
Why
how
they
do you
say
know
I know
that your
that.
number's right? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like,
No, you're fine.
I-
Hang on a minute, let Jay finish his
This,
explanation.
this is sent to us by the Department of State Health Services. Every day we get the count. If you look on their dashboard, it'll show us as 50 something,
right,
for example.
right.
But this count with an explanation of how they count it is now available every day to mayors and certain officials. Can I guarantee that counts right? No, ma'am, I cannot.
Sure.
And I don't think anybody else can, honestly.
But it's the official count that the judge would use
Right.
should he decide to file an affidavit with
For the
TDEM.
exemption.
However, we're under the understanding that it has to remain below a certain number. We're not even sure what that number is yet, because everybody's going, oh goodness, for 30 days before he can reapply for an exemption.
Is that correct, Will? Or?
That is the impression that our county attorney gave me on the phone when I spoke to her about 20 times a day after the commissioner's court meeting. She understood it was going to be a 30-day wait before they could possibly go back to the mask exemption.
Because we had come up over the number.
Yes, ma'am.
Jerry?
The reason those numbers changed the way they did, we went from, I think, like 23 down to 4. Is because they changed the way they were counting these. Or when we had 23 cases, those included tested positive and also probable cases. Ones that only fit the symptoms, but they hadn't been tested. But when they included them in the positive count, they're not doing that any longer. They pulled those numbers out of there, and that's why overnight it dropped down to like 4
After
cases.
14 days, they dropped them off.
Yeah. So it's just difference in the way they're now counting those cases compared to before.
So, excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the city council approves this ordinance 377, we're, I guess, giving our law enforcement the authority above what they were saying they couldn't enforce. We're telling them that they can enforce it. Is that what this ordinance is doing?
Why don't we let Will give us his opinion of what this ordinance can and cannot do?
well, my understanding is that the local ordinance would then bypass the mess that the governor's executive order made out of it, and therefore it would be enforceable if the city passes a local ordinance, that we would then be able to enforce it. I'm not endorsing or not endorsing it, I'm just giving.
Right, that's what I wanted to find out, is this would give him the authority to enforce it.
In terms of the commercial entities, I don't know. I just see this as really problematic for employees to be made responsible for regulating what other people do. I mean, I understand the concept, and I kind of joked with Will on the phone. I've seen, since I was a kid, you know, you see signs on stores that say no shirt, no shoes, no service, and that's just that. So add mask to it, what's the big deal? But if you have, there are people that are very belligerent about this specific issue right now, and I don't want to put some kid who's in a shop making minimum wage or what have you, in the line of fire for a situation like that to go wrong. So I have that issue with this, and I don't know what the best solution is. I'm only bringing it up for discussion.
Will, is this gonna make it better or easier for your job? Or is it gonna be effective? I mean, it's gonna help you, I guess. Or is it gonna hinder you?
I tend to, as we discussed earlier, I tend to believe that most of the folks around here are probably more inclined to wear a mask if they're asked rather than told. If y'all pass this ordinance, it's going to present some challenges, but I think ultimately it's going to be how it's presented to folks. If it's rammed down their throat and you jump on them and say, you gotta do it, if you put the mask on or you're getting a ticket, it's going to be very problematic, and certainly would not be the way I would want to approach that. If y'all pass it, we will make the best of it, but it's going to be with kid gloves and a lot of leeway and understanding and explanation, and hoping for the best. Like I said, I tend to believe people around here respond better to being asked about something like this, because it is a civil liberty constitutional kind of question that a lot of people feel very strongly about.
But do we need to pass this just so you're able to ask them?
Not so much just to ask them, but I mean, ultimately, this is a council decision, not a minor.
It's important to me anyway to get your feedback on if it's going to work for you or against you.
Well, ultimately, it's still going to be an officer discretion issue. So
right.
If you pass the ordinance, it is a tool, and I think if it's handled correctly, it can be used to get more people wearing their mask and doing the right thing. I mean, like I said, ultimately, I think people want to do the right thing. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of bad information out there right now, and some of this stuff just muddies the water and makes, you know, they'd rather fight about things than wonder about things they don't know about. You know, if they can argue about whether they have to wear a mask or not, that's simple. It's easy to deal with. So possibly it's better to have the ordinance, and we just will have to deal with handling it the right way on a case-by-case basis.
I'd like to just point out that this does say, the local ordinance does say, at any such time that Bandera County is not exempted. So if we're exempted, then none of this applies anyway. And that maybe we could consider just removing the piece about commercial entities, but leaving the persons in Bandera. Because that just puts it on the individual for their own personal responsibility. And in the event the cases get on the rise, or, you know, we get into a situation that we have community spread, that the marshal and his department does have the authority and the discretion.
And if you would note too, council, if you agree to remove A, and I certainly wish you would, If you look in item C, we will need to remove any reference to item A in the penalty and enforcement section.
You'll have to remove number 2 as well.
Ma'am,
You'll have to remove number 2 as well.
well, just read any reference to, in item C, 1, 2, 3, or 4, any reference to the commercial entity, I think would please strike.
Suzanne,
Okay,
So
I think I understand. how to
Do
do
you
that.
understand where we are, Ryan?
just give me a few more minutes.
Suzanne,
No.
in Will's, defense, he has not seen a copy of this yet since
Oh,
we
okay.
finalized it. So he's just now reading it over with the final rendition. So he may have further comment, I'm not
Well,
sure.
while you're reading it, may I say this to council? Whatever we strike from this ordinance is fine, but we do need to approve this ordinance because it contains the part about the city park. And that will soon expire, so we need to extend it again. So,
So if we strike all of A, which is requiring the commercial entities to post a health and safety policy required by this executive order, then what I see working now in our city is the businesses just having a sign on their door to please wear a mask before entering. And most times, people will just put that mask on.
Right.
So with that, so are we still allowing them, the businesses, to post that, or?
Well, they
yes,
can, they can do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't, okay, me personally, and I intend to post all this, but what if it wasn't me, but what if it was somebody came and I don't know, but then I could be fined $250 for not telling you to wear a mask. By posting outside that I recommend, I highly, strongly urge, please you please, then I get fined $250 because I don't have a silly sign up.
I wish this could be approached as more of like a campaign, and like we had a great sign that we would bring it. I mean, didn't the chamber or somebody produce posters for all the businesses, and
Are they the ones that
have you
did that? I don't
have you
know.
seen them?
I
Yeah,
have,
mean,
but I didn't know that. I like where it says on C, number 3, it is the expressed intent of the city council of Bandera to seek voluntary compliance. That, I like that with the orders of
Where
the
is that?
government. That's on C, under penalty and
Oh.
enforcement. That, I like that. That's the only part I like. Where it says it is the expressed intent of the city council of Bandera to seek voluntary compliance with the orders of the governor of the state of Texas and this ordinance, and utilize citations as a means of a last resort to gain compliance.
I totally agree.
Well, there's no reason to strike that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
That's what I'm saying. I like that.
Well, I like that too. But there's an order and there's a penalty attached to it before it says, we really don't want y'all to do this, but just in case you do, here's your fine. And I don't think anybody intends not to comply. And I'm sorry, it's the principle of the thing to me. And I just don't want to be that person.
I don't even agree with any of it, to be quite honest with you guys, to be really honest with you. I don't agree with any of A, B, or C. I think that should be up to the individual. That's just how I feel, that it should be up to the individual, because there's just so many other circumstances with maybe underlying health conditions of why they can't wear a mask, and you know, I think it needs to be a personal responsibility. I don't think the government needs to I don't think they should have the authority to make us wear a mask.
Sure.
But we can't change that, and that's only for when the governor has issued an executive order. We have no choice but to comply with that.
But
We can't ignore his order.
no,
And this is just a means to give him another way of being able to use his discretion, and if people aren't complying by a warning, then he has the authority. It makes his job easier. I don't see how it's gonna make anything worse on our end, because it's always gonna be up to the governor anyway.
B, if I'm not mistaken, is word for word from the executive order.
Yeah.
So again, it is just creating the local ordinance to give and it's not that I disagree with you, but we get into a massive debate of like why kids can't go to school without vaccinations. I mean, you just like, I don't think we really need to broaden the discussion and get into whether or not, because I've read studies that say there is zero effect on your health based on wearing a mask. You're not breathing in less oxygen. So again, I'm not trying to get into all
All this
that.
can be debated for a very
Everything
long
can
time.
be debated, right? The welfare of our citizens and the people who are working in jobs that serve the public that's our common concern, and that's our responsibility as council members, that the health and safety and preservation of our community. So if it's coming down from the CDC in this crazy time, and it's coming down from the governor, all this really does is gives our local law enforcement the opportunity, should they see fit, to be able to have some enforcement. So
Another tool.
may I make a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I wouldn't mind
First.
if you wanna.
After reading that, I just wanted to ask Will, do you have any other input?
A couple of things I'd like to try. First of all, Lynn, I personally wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said, personally. Second one, section A about the commercial entities, maybe we address all the concerns the mayor and others have said about that, with changing all or most of that to just that they require them to post signage that says a mask is required at the door, and whatever, adjustments to that you think, but it's just the main thing that the mask is required for, at all entrances to the businesses, and maybe we leave it at that, as far as that goes.
and I agree with that. I know that there are some businesses that do not have that sign up. So if you want to enforce that, if we want to enforce that they do, all businesses have a health and
Have a
safety,
plan.
have a plan and have that posted on, if we want to enforce that, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I would not have a problem
wouldn't
with
either,
that.
because I plan to do that part, but I just can't see my
Could
My
even
kitchen.
provide it,
Yeah.
make it like a campaign and provide something that's uniform throughout the
True.
city for businesses.
That's a great idea.
Bring it to them,
That's
have
a great
that face to
idea.
face.
Make it easy.
Do I need to have the verbatim language ready for a motion?
I just think the governor has an order in place already, and that should be sufficient. But that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
I'm entitled to my opinion.
I will start that debate.
But
We don't
it's
need
not,
that.
it's not debatable because it's not, because it doesn't give, it doesn't give any authority to enforce. And then again, unless the numbers go up, which indicate a problem, right, none of this even applies.
Absolutely.
But it does apply right now.
No.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Well,
It
okay,
does apply right now.
Because we're not exempt.
but we're not
right
doing
now.
anything
Because
with
we're
it
not
anyway,
exempt.
I just think we,
Well,
but we're not enforcing it right now anyway.
I just think we need to,
I would just be happy with have the businesses posting a sign.
that's what
That's
that's
it.
all we're trying to say. Oh,
That
that's
would be
it?
it. Yeah, that would be it.
For-
And if we're
for-
gonna,
For
See, that
A,
totally defeats.
for
what
A,
we're-
right?
well, for A, and then that would be it. I think that, in my opinion, that is all that should be required is for the businesses to post a sign and that it be up to that individual to take personal responsibility for themselves.
but we're not,
Okay,
okay,
so-
outside the business, what are your feelings outside the business, mask or no mask?
I mean, walking down the public
Well,
street,
for-
I say no mask.
No, that's
Well,
not
there's not
what
that
it is.
anyway.
You
For
have to,
social distancing is not feasible. I don't mean, let's say, well, thank God we're on social.
it's
well,
essentially
most of us
the,
are social.
it's the same thing.
She's talking
No,
about
This- that's-
if you read it, when,
Could somebody
That
please
part.
call for a vote and let's move on?
We need a
I
motion
make a
first.
motion.
Well, I just like to make one last statement.
Yes.
This is supposed to just be to make his job easier because of what he's been going through recently. This isn't to make it more strict. It's to give him the option. That's all.
I understand that.
Okay, Rebecca.
We'll start with the motion, and if we need to adjust it, we
Oh,
can
go from
adjust
there.
it. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 377 to exclude Exhibit A, Part 2, to revise Exhibit A, Part 4, A, to reduce A, commercial entities to all commercial entities in the city of Bandera providing goods or services directly to the public must post the health and safety policy requiring that all employees or visitors to the commercial entity as stated. Oh, the rest as stated. Okay, is that sufficient?
I think so.
Okay, striking the rest
Of
of
all
A.
that. Okay.
And then subsequently striking any relevant, I'll just leave it at that, any relevant pieces of Exhibit A
Let's see.
for C. Penalty and enforcement.
I don't, yes, Terry,
I'll second that.
thank you. You know, I know, but it's, I think we'll have the document that we're looking for after we make some revisions and, we'll get on with it. So, any further discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
a bit, if I may.
You did? Okay.
I don't know. Lynn, go ahead.
So if I'm understanding correctly, just so that I know what I'm gonna be voting on, I understand everything on Exhibit A, that we're taking out the National Day of the Cowboy event. We're addressing the city park occupancy, we're addressing outdoor gatherings. And then we go on to the face coverings. And so in A, all we're asking for the businesses to do is to post a health and safety poster that says that they needed to wear a mask. And that's all we're doing for the commercial entities. Is that correct?
Yeah, but that implies a lot. That implies that every employee and every person walking in is required to wear a mask. Now-
However, if you go on to read section 1, it says, face coverings which will necessarily involve close contact or proximity to coworkers or the public for 6 feet of separation is not
Okay,
feasible.
thank you, yes,
I'd like to be sure that's included.
yes. That's why I said just, and the rest of it as it is, right?
Yes,
Right, right. So all of one,
Yes.
and the rest is struck. And then persons in the city of Bandera, that's all kind of exactly what the governor put in his order. And then C, penalty and enforcement, the only thing that we're leaving is that it is the expressed intent of the city council of Bandera to seek voluntary compliance with the orders of the governor, the safety and blah, blah, blah on that one. And then it is affirmative defense to prosecution of any violation that at the time of this citation, Bandera County was exempt from the general. So that's all we're leaving.
Let's,
So
I
what
might need
we're,
to actually
so
mark
we're
that.
not really saying we're gonna enforce the face covering by putting this ordinance in that way that I just described.
Well,
We are not giving the marshal's office the authority to enforce the mask,
No,
we are
that's
striking any
because
reference,
we're striking everything.
no,
Mm-mm.
any reference
No.
to A.
only anything in reference to
That's not true.
something that we removed.
Number 2 will go away. The item A reference in number 1,
Is that
and
they
then 3
post
and
a
4
mask.
stay.
Well, let's clarify this.
No, because we were gonna,
Yeah.
you just said that in A, we were only leaving one and striking the rest. That's why I wanted to make clarification.
Right, and that's why we're removing any reference to item.
No. Let's, I wanna make
Did I
sure.
mix that, did I mix
Well,
that up?
here we have a stipulation for the commercial entity, right? So we have to have penalty of enforcement in here. I would appreciate removing item 2 under penalty of enforcement. So I will revise my
Item
motion
2.
as such. I just want to make sure that we got all the revisions necessary at once. And I do think that that's it. What do you, go ahead.
Jerry?
Well, I'm just now confused as far as she mentioned that we're removing the face mask enforcement.
No,
Well, we're not giving them the authority to fine. If
Well,
we
yeah, we
cross 2, 3, and 4 out
I
in
Not correct.
sections,
I never
the
said
commercial
that.
entities.
Oh,
There was-
no, you
Never
have
said that.
enforcement in C.
This is not about enforcement, this is about, y'all need to put up a safety policy, you need to inform the public of hand sanitizing, hand washing, social
No,
distance.
that's not, we didn't say
masking.
anything, we didn't say any of that. All we said was your sign needs to say face masks required. Wear 6 feet of. One,
Not feasible.
okay, right, number 1.
And then we're striking 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
Under that, correct? That's why I wanted to be clear.
Yes, yes.
So we're striking 2, 3, and 4.
But I'm not following how you're saying that means there's no enforcement.
Well, if we strike penalty and enforcement, and we
We're
strike
not
1 and
striking.
2.
We're not,
Oh, I thought you said strike 1 and 2.
just,
Oh, okay. All right, now I'm clear.
Okay,
I'm clear.
I just want to amend my motion to be clear, that under Exhibit A, Part 4, C, we're striking number 2.
and Jerry, you
Second.
carry on, all right. Further discussion? All in favor?
Looked at,
Rebecca, Jerry, Don, and Rosie are in favor, those opposed? Then Palmer says opposed. Okay, H. Discussion and action on resolution 2020-006, ordering a general election of the qualified voters of the city of Bandera for the purpose of electing a mayor and 2 city council members to serve 2-year terms. I'm going to read to you the title, resolution 2020-006. The resolution of the city council of the city of Bandera, Texas, ordering a general election of the qualified voters for the city of Bandera, Texas on November 3rd, 2020, for the purpose of electing a mayor and 2 city council members for the city council to serve a 2-year term, providing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution 2020-006.
Second.
Thank you. Second,
Lynn,
Lynn, thank you, Lynn.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, Council. I'll get this signed, packets are available, so. Discussion and possible action on appointing Bandera EDC applicants to fill vacancies on the board. We have 3 applications, they're all county residents, and there's 1 seat on the board, which is a county resident. Lynn?
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Deanna McCabe to the EDC board. I do want to say that. well,
I need a second.
I'll second.
I do want to say that the opening, according to the bylaws, is for a county resident that owns a business in the city, and Deanna is the only one that qualifies for that.
Thank you. Discussion? Other than that? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, Council, as you know, I told you, once we got a full board, I would resign from council. We don't, if you want, we don't, but we have 5 members now and myself makes 6. If you want me to resign from council, EDC, I will. I can't resign from council. I'm sorry, we're getting a little loopy here, it's getting late, so. But that would be an agenda item for a future day, so, you know, I just want to know that the offers out there. Okay, item 7, request and announcements. Request by council to place items on a future agenda.
I
can't do brains. Can we move
just
on?
send me an email.
Moving right along. Item B, announcements by council. Don't forget that we have, I have got a really good one. August the 15th, guys, the friends, family, and fellow Marines that served with Sergeant Rodney Monteo are planning to put a concrete bench at the memorial already existing in City Park. Due to the COVID and all this other stuff, I'll be doing the declaration stuff, but he has invited the public, if they wish to come, and the council and the law enforcement. And I was there for the original one, and I was also there, not there, but I was here in town and newly elected to mayor when this terrible accident happened, so.
It is on a Saturday.
Ma'am?
That, August 15th is on Saturday.
Yes. At noon. There'll be more details coming. Any other announcements? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Rebecca makes a motion to adjourn. Everybody second. Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Good night, y'all. 9:02.